When Intel officially confirmed that it was going to be producing discrete GPUs, well, there was little surprise from anyone. Not only had there been an awful lot of rumours and speculation up until that point that Intel were planning to produce discrete GPUs, but also Raja Koduri had joined Intel, jumping ship from AMD. Realistically, what else would he be working on other than discrete GPUs for the company? There have been a few official confirmations of what the plans are though for Intel's discrete graphics, but very little concrete information on exactly what performance targets would be, the roadmap and so on up until this point. Raja Koduri has officially taken to the stage and divulged several key details for the company's plans, mostly revolving around the 7nm GPUs known as Ponte Vecchio. These GPUs will not launch until 2021, which is going to be about a year or so after the 10nm GPUs in the Xe family. The 10nm GPUs, however, will focus on gaming. The 7nm GPUs will have gaming in their arsenal, but also target several other usage cases, including HPC and data centers. Taking to the stage, Mr. Koduri provided a glimpse into what Intel's graphics roadmap will look like, and what the company are planning across a wide variety of market sectors. Intel's Xe will broadly be a single architecture, but will be split into many different micro-architectures depending upon the intended usage of the product. Intel Xe Low Power is a series of GPUs operating between a power envelope of 5 and 20 watts, with a maximum of 50 watts. These parts, as you can probably tell from the name, will push lower power consumption and small die size as the priority, because clearly in a mobile/integrated space, efficiency and power consumption are the priorities. Next up, we have Intel Xe HP, High Power. These will likely be the GPUs gamers will be most interested in, and these will target enthusiast gaming, but also offer product solutions for data centers as well. As the name implies, the TDP is much higher for these products, up to 250 watts, which is more like the flagship products from either AMD or Nvidia. Finally, there is Intel Xe HPC, HPC Exascale. We don't have TDP numbers for these, unfortunately, but they will be specifically designed as a no-compromise solution for supercomputers, therefore most likely not available, let's be honest, to the average mainstream user. Ori Rausch actually provided us a quote for this. He serves as the VP of Architecture, Graphics and Software at Intel Graphics. The Xe is one architecture with all of the features and capabilities that trickle up and down between the micro-architectures. Yes, you will have a migration of capabilities between these micro-architectures. That's the whole idea of having one Xe architecture. Intel's Ponte Vecchio, which by the way is named after a bridge in Florence, Italy, if you're wondering, is what Intel considers a exascale class graphics solution, and will be using Intel's 7nm manufacturing process, which is twice the density of its own 10nm process. Insert 10nm meme here, please. But most of this will also revolve around chiplets. That's right, Intel will definitely be using chiplets for its 7nm GPUs. Essentially, it will leverage Intel's Foveros/die stacking capabilities, which will be then connected via Intel's EMIB technology. We've gone into depth of what those technologies are in previous videos, so if you're unfamiliar, either do a quick Google or you can check on the channel. If I start delving into that, the video is going to be really long. But basically this means that in multi-GPU solutions, Intel will provide GPU to GPU communication thanks to CXL, Compute Express Link, which leverages the PCIe 5 protocol. This is great for yields because it essentially means Intel won't need to produce a single large monolithic die, but instead use chiplets similar to how AMD does for say its Zen 2 products. We do know that eventually Intel will not be the only game in town when it comes to chiplets and GPUs. AMD and Nvidia have confirmed that they are researching chiplets for their own products, But in the here and now, Intel are the only one of the 3 companies to confirm that they are doing it for an upcoming product. The EMIB technology will also connect the GPUs themselves directly to HBM packages, although I think that on gaming GPUs, for example the 10nm ones which are launching next year, we can probably say that the approach will differ a little bit. Intel have also confirmed that Xe GPUs will feature variable vector width as well. Here's what Ponte Vecchio is capable of. SIMT, single instruction multi-thread, this is more like a traditional GPU. SIMD, single instruction multi-data, this is more like a CPU. And we also have a mixture between the two, SIMT and SIMD, which is the highest performance. Tom's Hardware managed to grab a slide from Intel which really provides us a glimpse into the story here. Intel claimed that we are looking at up to thousands of execution units per card. Once again, I'm stressing this is not a chip, this is several, of course, chiplets together. And each EU offers up to 40 times the double precision floating point performance of previous generations. But, well, high performance GPUs are great, but they need something to work. Data. Memory bandwidth is a critical component in a GPU. If you don't believe me, feel free to open up, let's say, MSI Afterburner, benchmark your GPU with stock settings on, let's say, superposition, and then crank the memory clock frequencies all the way down to the lowest setting, then run the benchmark again. But imagine this compounded by inter-chip communication with chiplets. Chiplets without the ability to send data to each other effectively. To this end, Intel uses XEMF, Xe Memory Fabric. Yes, we have a whole set of new acronyms that we're all going to have to learn. This glues both the memory and GPU chiplets into a coherent memory interface. Intel claims that this can scale to, quote, thousands, end quote, of nodes. And we also have Rambo Cache. Please email me your memes. Which is claimed will mean that both the CPU and GPUs and systems will have access to huge pools of potential memory bandwidth. If you've been watching / listening to this very, very attentively, you'll probably notice there are a couple of missing details. They're small things, not really that important in the grand scheme of things, but let's say the number of execution units per chiplet, clock frequencies, memory bandwidth, total amount of memory, and so on and so on. Remember though, these products don't launch until 2021. Ari did actually comment on this. He said, and I quote, "You can assume that this device takes advantage of all the latest and greatest technology from Intel. 2D/3D memory technology, all in place. I cannot confirm, but there's a lot of technology packed into this amazing device," end quote. Which is not really telling us much, but basically them saying that they're not disclosing anything more than they're ready to disclose. For those, however, that want a gaming GPU and thinking of buying one in 2020, Intel will be starting out their Xe lineup for gaming then. It will be using the 10nm process, and from the rumours I'm hearing, will be targeting, quote, mid-range, end quote, performance for 2020. Oh, and if you're going to then question in the comments, well, what's the difference between Xe in 2020, besides the fact it's on 10nm, and the architecture launching in 2021, no one knows exactly. We don't really know how Intel are changing the architecture. There have been a lot of rumours, there's been a lot of leaks, but we don't know officially what the difference is, aside from the fact that it's on a different process. There is also official information from Intel now that they've provided thanks to this conference, which actually does confirm a few theories we've had, plus some previous rumours. On the subject of the theories for a moment, you might recall that Intel probably accidentally on purpose if I'm really honest, but whatever, a graphics driver earlier this year with several entries which appeared to be Xe GPUs. They were dubbed LP and HP variants, which we assumed to mean low power and high power. They also seem to correspond with the number of execution units on the GPU. On that particular leak, the highest end SKU appeared to sport 512 EU. So if we took a modest clock frequency, let's say 1200-ish megahertz, this should be ripe for mid-range performance in 2020. Furthermore, Chris Hook on Twitter confirmed that engineering samples of XE are now working and being tested. They're alive, apparently, he claimed. And we've also seen several products pass through certification online. Amy actually covered this story recently, a couple of days ago, if memory serves. And these do revolve around, however, the DG1, which is the lower end cards. There's also several things here that seem to confirm several leaks from Ashraf, who used to work at the Motley Fool, but have since been poached by Intel. He confirmed that XE would be using MCM, and also Intel would be heavily targeting Nvidia. Rather interestingly, I've actually heard similar myself through the grapevine, that Intel are targeting Nvidia, particularly in the data center, and also gaming. There's less references to AMD and Intel, but they really seem to be aiming at Nvidia. And during this same conference, Intel have also provided us some information to its node architecture. High performance, high bandwidth is the order of the day. Each Intel node sports 6 Ponte Vecchio graphics units, each of these holding 16 compute units, as well as 2 Sapphire Rapid CPUs, which of course are next generation server CPUs. Basically, all of the memory is unified thanks to CXL and the other technologies. So whether it's the Optane memory, the system memory, which is rumoured to be DDR5, or the HBM residing on the GPUs themselves. If you rewind the clocks back to the late 90s/early 2000s, there was no shortage of competition in the graphics arena. Nvidia were there, of course, producing cards such as the TNT line, and eventually the GeForce series. ATI, before AMD gobbled them up, had their Radeon products, and were extremely competitive. The Radeon 9700 is legendary for a reason. But we also had companies such as 3DFX and Matrox. More competition then is a good thing, and I hope Intel is able to offer competitive products. And it will be fascinating to see the performance of XE and also how they market these GPUs as well. For gamers, there's also a question on what Intel's strategy will be in regards to the production of the cards. I asked Intel about this and they're not ready to disclose it, rather obviously. And if you think about it, AMD and Nvidia farm out the manufacturing of GPUs to AIBs. So we have cards from MSI, Gigabyte, PowerColor, Asus, and so on and so on. And if you're a Radeon owner, there's a good chance that you have a favourite manufacturer. If you're an Nvidia gamer, then, well, pretty much the same thing. Naturally, though, many of these AIBs Intel does have ties with thanks to motherboards. For example, Gigabyte, Asus, MSI produce the 390 motherboards and so on and so on. So the question is, will Intel produce the chips and other components and then let AIBs make their own cards? Or instead, will they handle things more like CPU production and handle everything in question? With any luck, we'll know more soon, and it's going to be fascinating to see what route they go here. Obviously, both have their positives and their negatives. And now we're going to move over to Intel's Comet Lake, because there are some reports floating around the internets, thanks to ASCII.jp, which is a Japanese tech website, that we may see a preview of Comet Lake coming in January of this year during CES, and then we may see a release of the CPUs taking place in February. Comet Lake, as a quick reminder, is still utilizing the Skylake architecture, but will ramp up the number of cores, and we're also hearing the clock frequencies as well, so we will see up to 10 CPU cores. There's a lot of questions regarding what the pricing and performance of these CPUs is. There have been an awful lot of leaks that basically every single one of the Comet Lake processors does feature hyperthreading. Once again, I'm not surprised by this. I kind of guessed that that would be the case. After all, you've got CPUs such as the 3600, the 3700, and so on, all of which do feature SMT from AMD. There are, of course, CPUs such as the 3500, but that's not broadly available outside of China. So yeah, I really think Intel is going to have to compete in price. What we have seen, of course, is a drastic cut in the price of Cascade Lake and the 10 series of HEDT CPUs by about 50%, but will Intel also cut the price of its mainstream lineup? I'm hoping so. After all, we can't have, let's say, the 10900K costing more than the 10900X. It just wouldn't really work, particularly when you take... I've heard a lot of rumours concerning Intel's plans for discrete GPUs. I've heard that they are definitely targeting Nvidia, and that they are looking to enter the market at an excellent price. But ultimately, all of these are rumours, and it's going to be fascinating to see what eventually happens in reality. As I said recently in my Radeon RX 5700 review, please go ahead and check it out if you would, I'll link it in the video description. The bleeding edge is extremely exciting. It's amazing to see what happens with the graphs and to see the benchmarks whiz by as you check out the latest and greatest graphics card from AMD or Nvidia. But at the end of the day, you're also spending $1,000 plus for the privilege of owning one of these cards. It's way outside the budget of the average gamer. I say it in such a way because many people aren't even buying something like an RX 5700 and they're even using lower end GPUs than that. And they're having an amazing time. But I want to see the mid-range cards be as competitive as possible, particularly given that the next generation of consoles is not too long in the future. By this point next year, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Scarlet will launch. No one knows exactly what those consoles are capable of. Sony and Microsoft are touting 60 FPS with 4K visuals and ray tracing. I suspect that might be a bit over-ambitious, but still, if you are on a budget and you're looking at the next generation of consoles with the impressive visuals and you're thinking, well, I could buy a next generation of console, or for the same price I can pick up a mid-tier GPU, well, what do I do? And that's kind of my point. I'm really hoping that we see a lot of competition next year in graphics. I think it's going to be extremely important for the health of the PC market. But with all of that said, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you did, then of course leave a like on the video and also subscribe for much more content. And this video is also an article as well, so you can go ahead and check it out in the video description if you do prefer the written word. With all of that said, take care of yourselves. Bye for now.